Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash, and double honors and respect to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth, as well as much respect and honors to the brothers that are pushing this truth in sincerity across the four winds of this earth and risking their lives and freedom to do so. I would also like to give much honors and respect to the brothers and sisters that are of the hopeful elect that are doing their very best to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High to the best of their abilities. Shalom. I have this article right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into it. This is actually a fairly new article. It's about a day old. It's dated July the 11th, 2025. And the title of the article, it says, White House reviews mass federal layoffs plans, aims for swift action. Okay. Now here it is. I want to say around the first of this year, maybe to around the end of May or so, we were hearing about, massive layoffs that were happening within the federal government. And you had Elon Musk. He was leading, the charge on the, these massive layoffs, okay, that were happening within the federal government. And you had a lot of people that were affected. A lot of people, had been out of work, as a result, of these massive layoffs that's been happening within the federal government. You had a lot of people, they were fired. You had a lot of people that took an early retirement, within the federal government. But, here it is. I want to say maybe around the end of May or so, we didn't hear as much about, the federal layoffs, happening. And I want to say that was actually a result of maybe that was probably more so a result of, I think you had Elon Musk and DJ Donald Duck. They had fell out or something like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Elon Musk is no longer, working with DJ Donald Duck in terms of, these layoffs within the federal government. But here it is. You have DJ Donald Duck. He still wants to lay off more, federal employees. And so, we're starting to hear, about it, happening again to where, they're planning on, doing more layoffs within the federal government. And so, myself personally, I used to work for the federal government some years back. And, now I'm a contractor now. But, when I was working for the federal government, I can remember, when I was working with the federal government, you had a lot of, Eves, okay, who work within the federal government, a lot of women, a lot of Eves who work within the federal government. And, with these massive layoffs that's been happening within the federal government, you've had a lot of Eves that have been affected. OK, a lot of Eves are finding themselves out of work, due to these massive layoffs that are happening within the federal government. And with that being said, more Eves are going to be affected. More people in general are going to be affected, because it's not just Eve who works for the federal government. You even have some Jakes that work for the federal government as well. But, this just shows you that America, this place is done. This place is on life support and that plug is soon about to be pulled, And so, this is why you got to come up out of this place spiritually, Israel, and return to the Father and His Son. And when I say Israel, I'm talking about you so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, and those that are other speckled bird that look like these other nations. But you go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on your father's side. America is just going to continue to wax worse and worse. This place is done. And the grinding is ceasing over here. The work is drying up over here. And it's not just the federal government, that's being affected with these massive layoffs. You even having, jobs within the private sector. They're being affected as well, too. OK, a lot of people who work within the private sector, they're getting laid off. Here it is. You're having a lot of people. They're taking to social media and they're complaining about, being out of work. They're complaining about struggling to try to make the ends meet. OK, you even having, people that are taking to social media and they're talking about how they're having to live in their vehicles now. OK, you got people talking about, living in storage units and whatnot. I'm even seeing, women, OK, a lot of Eves, OK, who are living in their vehicles. They're living in storage units. And some of these Eves have children, And so, this place is just it's circling the toilet. This place is done. America is done. And you're going to hear about more layoffs, that are coming because, again, the work is drying up over here, I'm just going to go ahead and read a little bit of this article. What I will try to do is I will try to post a link, of this article in the description box of this lesson. It says the White House is scrutinizing layoff plans by federal agencies in an effort to limit further court challenges after the Supreme Court cleared the way for a sweeping downsizing of the government workforce. It says, according to two senior White House officials with knowledge of the matter. It says the White House Counsel's Office and the Office of Personnel Management are coordinating with federal agencies to ensure their plans comply with the law, one of the officials said. That includes meeting requirements set by Congress, such as rules for how layoffs must occur and the minimum number of staff an agency must retain. Okay, and see, it says minimum number of staff an agency must retain. Now, here it is. A lot of federal employees have already been laid off. And so with that being said, you're having, federal employees, they're actually speaking out and they're complaining and they're talking about, due to having a lack of staff, work, it's not being, not being done properly. You're having people within the federal government, they're having to take on extra duties, due to having a limited number of staff. But here it is, you got DJ Donald Duck. He's talking about laying off more, federal employees. And so, again, this place is done. America's done. It's done. And again, you have to come up out of this place spiritually, Israel, and return to the Father and the Son, because the Most High, said that his elect, it will go well with his elect. The Most High is going to ensure that his elect have everything they need to survive, and Lord willing, we have that elect number, but as for the 2/3 of our people, it's not going to end well for them. They're going to be in a bad case. It says the official declined to give a specific timetable for when layoffs will begin, but said the plan is to move quickly. It says the goal is to simplify the size of the federal government, so we will do what we need to do to reach that goal, the official said, calling the downsizing an immediate priority. And see, they've been on it. They've been laying off a lot of federal employees, over the past few months, and they're talking about doing more. Okay, they're talking about doing more massive layoffs within the federal government. And so more people are going to be affected by these layoffs. And as I was saying, you have a lot of Eves who work for the federal government. A lot more Eves are going to be affected. And as I was saying also, too, here it is. I'm seeing where you're having Eves. They're taking to social media, and they're talking about that they're having to live in their cars or they're having to, live in storage units and whatnot. And a lot of these Eves, they have children. I even saw where an Eve, she had took to social media and she had said that she would, be willing to basically do, any type of work that a person, would have for her to do, as long as they could provide her a place to stay. And so, a lot of people out here bad. Okay. And a lot more people, are going to find themselves in a bad case. It says the Supreme Court's decision on Tuesday opened the door for President DJ Donald Duck's administration to pursue thousands of government job cuts across multiple agencies. And see, multiple agencies within the federal government are going to continue to be affected by these massive layoffs that are happening. Okay. It says while administration officials have called the effort a streamlining of government, unions and their allies warn layoffs will disrupt lives and essential services. And that's already happening, but it's going to continue to happen. As I was saying, I gave you some examples earlier where you're having people that are taking to social media and they're complaining about, being out of work. They're complaining about struggling to try to make the ends meet. Here it is. As I was saying, you're having people that are living in storage units. They're living in cars. I saw an article not too long ago that came out and it was talking about how a lot of people within the DMV area, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, you have a lot of people out here who work for the federal government. And so a lot of people have now had to sell their homes, okay, or their homes have gone into foreclosure, due to the fact that the federal government is downsizing. And so a lot of people's lives are already being disrupted and more lives are about to be disrupted. Okay. It says their allies warn the layoffs will disrupt lives and essential services. Okay. And see, essential services. Here it is. The VA, you having VA, veterans, they're being, affected in terms of, healthcare because the VA has laid off a lot of, employees, within that agency. It says, and hollow out agencies already stretched thin. And as I was saying, here it is. You're having people already, federal employees, they're complaining about, the lack of employees and having a limited, number of workers on their staff. And so therefore, they're complaining that, they're being stretched thin and that you're having, things that are not being taken care of properly, due to not having adequate, staff. Okay. But again, this is why you got to come up out of this place spiritually as well. In this place, America, like I say, is not going to recover. It's just going to continue to wax worse and worse. This place is done, And see, here it is. I can remember a few years back, when DJ Donald Duck. No, this is when a few years back when you had Creepy Joe in office. Okay. When Creepy Joe was in office a few years back, he had mandated that all federal employees had to run down and drink that Beetlejuice in order to, keep their jobs. And with that being said, you had a lot of federal employees. They did that to try to save their jobs. Okay. I actually know some people who did that. I know some Eves, who work for the federal government. They ran down there and they drink that Beetlejuice to try to keep their jobs. And here it is. A lot of those same Eves that I know that did that. They're having all types of health issues and whatnot, and they're sick all the time and whatnot. And they did that to try to keep their jobs. But now here it is. Fast forward a few years later, those same jobs that they were trying to keep are up on the chop block again, But again, as I was saying, you're going to have a lot of our people, who lack faith. The 2/3 of our people over here in Babylon the Great who lack faith. They're going to run down to Esau, and they're going to try to look for Esau to save them. And Esau, he may throw them a few crumbs, but in return, Esau, he's going to want them to get that M-O to the T to the B, that implantable grain of rice. And you're going to have a lot of our people. They're going to do that. Okay. And that right there is going to lead to their destruction. And so, I saw this, this article right here, and I just thought that I would bring out a quick lesson. I'm going to go ahead and bring out a few scriptures, and then we will end the lesson. Okay, the first scripture I want to go to is in the book of 2nd Ezra. This is chapter 16. This is verse 18. And it reads, beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Okay, and see, here it is. We're in some, sorrowful and sad times right now. And with that being said, more sorrowful and sad times are coming. Here it is. You got people that are losing their jobs. The unemployment rate is on the rise. You got inflation that's on the rise. And so people are struggling, to try to pay their rent, their mortgage. You got people who can't pay their rent or their mortgage. You got people who are losing their homes. They're losing their apartments. As I was saying earlier, you got people who are living in cars. They're living in storage units, And with, the inflation on the rise and the unemployment rate on the rise, that's contributing to an uptick of crime and violence. Okay. Because people trying to get it however they can get it, even if that means taking from others. You got people now, they're crashing out. Okay, they're losing it over the smallest little things, and it's not going to get any better. It's just going to continue to wax worse and worse. So we're in some sorrowful, times. Okay, we're in a time of mournings, of great mournings, and more of these things are coming. Okay, more of these things are coming. It says the beginning of sorrows and great mournings. It says the beginning of famine and great death. And see, famine is coming to Babylon the Great. Here it is. Every week we're hearing about recalls on different foods. I want to say, I think maybe today. Yeah, today, I think I saw an article where they're doing a recall on a bunch of eggs. Now, here it is. I want to say earlier this year, there was a recall on eggs. Now, here it is. There's another recall on eggs. Okay. But every week we're hearing about recalls on different foods and whatnot. That's leading to food shortages. That's going to lead to famine. Also, too, over the past 4 years, okay, you had these devils. They've been engineering all of these different food processing plants that were catching on fire and whatnot. Okay, you had a bunch of food processing plants that caught on fire. You had a bunch of egg plants that caught on fire. You had a bunch of chicken farms. You've had beef farms catching on fire and whatnot. That's going to lead to famine. It's already causing food shortages in various parts of Babylon the Great. Famine is coming to Babylon the Great. Famine is coming to Babylon the Great, whether you want to hear it or not, And see, those of our people who are not seeking the Lord, those of our people who are not repenting, they're going to get caught into these evils and these calamities. They're going to get caught into the famine. It says the beginning of famine and great death. Okay, and see, here it is. I want to say the early part of this year, you had a bunch of planes that were dropping out of the skies. I think even lately, there's been some planes that's been dropping out of the skies and unaliving people and whatnot at an alarming rate. Also, too, it says great death. I'm still in verse 18. Also, too, there's been a lot of great death that's been happening. Okay, after a lot of people subjected themselves to that Beetlejuice. Okay, Here it is, now you got a bunch of different, pesticides that are on the rise, such as cancers. You got a bunch of cancers that's on the rise. You got a heart diseases on the rise, strokes on the rise, okay? There's other types of pesticides that are on the rise that's taking people out. After that, Beetlejuice was introduced and a lot of people folded and submitted and drank it. Okay, it says the beginning of wars and the power shall stand in fear. Okay, and see, here it is. We're hearing about wars and rumors of wars. Okay, you got the situation that's going on between the state of Israel and Iran. Okay, you got the situation that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. You got Russia is threatening war with America. You got Iran is threatening war with America. You got North Korea is threatening war with America. You even have America's allies are beginning to turn on America. Okay. It says the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? And see, here it is. We're in some evil times and more evils are coming. But with that being said, those of us that are of the hopeful elect, we're going to continue to watch. We're going to continue to pray. And we're going to continue to trust in the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, to provide that hedge of protection over us. That's what we're going to do. Okay, this is Isaiah. This is chapter 19. This is verse 14. And it reads, the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, have mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. And they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggering in his vomit. Okay, and see, here it is. You got 2/3 of our people that are caught into the perverse ways that's pushed out over here in America. You got 2/3 of our people that are into these fake religions. Okay, you got 2/3 of our people that are into worshiping white man Jesus. Okay, you got 2/3 of our people that look at this devil Esau. Okay, it's being their higher power. Okay, you got 2/3 of our people that are caught up into all of the wickedness that's pushed out over here in Babylon the Great. They're caught up into all the folly that's pushed out over here in Babylon the Great. You got 2/3 of our people that are caught up into all of these different agendas, such as this Mo agenda that's pushed out over here in Babylon the Great. Here it is. You got a lot of our men that are acting all effeminate. Okay, you got a lot of men, okay, that are going up other men's backsides and whatnot. Okay, you got a lot of women, okay, that are acting masculine and being carpet munchers and whatnot. You got 2/3 of our people that are caught into all forms of wickedness that's pushed out over here in Babylon the Great. The majority of our people over here in Babylon the Great, they're through. Okay, and this is why 2/3 of our people, are going to get caught up into the different plagues and the calamities that the Most High Yahweh is sending on Babylon the Great. 2/3 of our people are going to receive the same harsh judgments as these Edomites and the rest of these heathens, because 2/3 of our people are being wicked, just like these Edomites and the rest of these heathens. Isaiah chapter 19, this verse 15. It says, neither should there be any work for Egypt which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. Okay, and see, this article that I just read to you. Here it is, they're talking about doing more layoffs within the federal government. Okay, and so more people within the federal government are going to be out of work. Okay. Also, too, you got many businesses within the private sector that are downsizing and shutting their doors. And so we're seeing massive layoffs that are happening within the private sector as well. And the unemployment rate is just going to continue to skyrocket over here in Babylon the Great. And see, back to federal jobs. At one time, having a federal job was considered to be somewhat of a secure employment. But now that's not the case anymore, because you got so many federal employees, that have been canned. So many federal employees that are about to be canned. Okay, and so the grinding is ceasing over here in Babylon the Great. The work is drying up over here. And, those of our people who are putting their faith in this failing system of Esau's, they're going to be in a bad case, because America is literally circling the toilet. Isaiah chapter 19, this verse 16. It says, in that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua of hosts, which he shaketh over it. And see, here it is. People are becoming nervous and scared right now, because people are fearful about, possibly losing their jobs. People are fearful that if they lose their jobs, their lifestyle is going to change. Okay. Here it is. I saw another article where they're talking about, over here in Maryland, they're going to do away with a bunch of SNAP benefits. 170,000 people are going to be affected, according to the article that I saw, the latest article that I saw. And so you got a lot of people that are becoming fearful about losing their SNAP benefits. You got a lot of people that are becoming fearful that they may end up starving, to death. And that's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of people. Okay, they're going to starve. Okay. Here it is also, too. You got a lot of people that are, being fearful about being deported and whatnot, because, you got a lot of, Northern Kingdom tribes. They're being affected, by these massive, ICE deportations and whatnot. People are becoming fearful because they're beginning to realize that there's no future over here in America. They're beginning to realize that this place is done. Okay, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, and I want to start in verse 3. And it reads, "In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened." And see, the keepers of the house, that's talking about these elite bankers, these economists that keep up with the Dow Jones. They're trembling because they're seeing the downfall of Babylon. Okay, and the grinders are the workers. Okay, and the grinding is ceasing due to massive layoffs that are happening over here. You got businesses that are shutting down. Okay, work is drying up over here. Okay, in Babylon the Great. The work is drying up over here. Okay, it says, "And those that look out of the windows be darkened." Okay, and see, the windows are becoming darkened because people are beginning to realize that there's no future over here in America. Okay, people are beginning to realize that this place is done. Okay, and it's the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua is bringing this place down. And the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua is bringing down Babylon the Great because of all the wickedness that goes on over here. The Lord is judging this place. Okay, and that ultimate judgment that's going to come to Babylon the Great is going to come by way of thermonuclear missiles, which is going to destroy this place. And you're going to have 2/3 of our people, right along with these Edomites and the rest of these heathens, they're going to be missile food over here in Babylon the Great. Okay, this is 2 Ezra chapter 8, and this is verse 50. "And it reads, For many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride." Okay, and see, great miseries are happening, to many people, because they have walked in great pride. Okay, you got a lot of people now, they're becoming distressed and nervous, because they're either out of work or they may end up losing their jobs. Okay, and so therefore they're fearful, that their lifestyles may change, for the worse because, they may be unemployed or they're becoming unemployed. Here it is, as I was saying, you got a lot of people, they're taking to social media and they're complaining about, living in their cars. They're complaining about living in storage units because they've either lost their jobs or they're barely, they can barely afford to make the ends meet and whatnot. 2 Ezra chapter 8, and this is verse 50 again. It says, "For many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride." And see, here it is, as I was saying earlier, not too long ago, when you had Creepy Joe in office, when he had, made it mandatory for federal employees to drink that Beetlejuice in order to keep their government jobs. Okay, you had a lot of people who folded and they submitted to this devil and they drank it. Okay, a lot of Jakes and Eves, okay, who work for the federal government, they folded and they submitted to this devil and they drank that stuff. And now here it is, those same federal employees, who drank that stuff. They thought that they were securing their jobs. Okay, and they thought that they would be in a good place, by, submitting to Esau. But now here it is, fast forward 4 years later. Okay, many of those same employees, okay, that drink that Beetlejuice, they're about to be out of work or they're out of work. And that's those that are still living, because a lot of people, who drank it, they dropped or they're having all types of issues and whatnot. But see, this just shows you what happens, when you trust in the devil versus trusting in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Anytime you trust in this devil Esau, it never ends well. Okay, because as I was saying, a lot of people who drink that stuff, they died. Okay, and many people are having all types of issues and whatnot. Here it is, I got a supervisor. Okay, she drank it. She had like several of them things. Okay, and here it is, she's always having to call in sick and whatnot. Because she's having health issues. But as I was saying, you had a lot of people, who drink that stuff, trying to save their federal jobs. And now here it is, those same federal jobs that they were trying to save are on the chopping block. And a lot of them are becoming unemployed or about to be unemployed. 2 Ezra chapter 8, and this is verse 50 again. It says, "For many great miseries should be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride." And see, all of these things are happening. These great miseries are happening, because we're in the final rulership of this age that's ran by these Edomites. And these great miseries and tribulations are going to continue to affect these Edomites along with the rest of these heathens and 2/3 of our people, because they have walked in great pride and in a manner of arrogancy. Okay. And see, also, as I was saying earlier, you have a lot of women who work, for the federal government. You have a lot of Eves who work for the federal government. And this right here leads me to my next scripture. This is Isaiah chapter 32, and this is verse 9. And it reads, "Rise up, ye women that are at ease." It says, "Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech." Okay. And see, here it is. You got men of our women, they've been living it up at ease. Okay. They've been living carelessly over here in Babylon the Great. Here it is. Men of our women, they have lived it up off of these different benefits, that Esau gives them, such as, WIC, housing, welfare and whatnot, and here it is. Also, Esau, he'll even give, our women, supervisor positions and whatnot, because even within the federal government, you had, a lot of Eves who work in supervisor positions within the federal government. But Esau, he gives all these different things, to basically try to keep our women at odds against the Israelite men. Okay. And it's worked in many cases, okay, because you have, a lot of our women, they're at odds against the Israelite men. Isaiah chapter 32, this is verse 9 again. It says, "Rise up, ye women that are at ease." It says, "Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech." And see, giving ear unto the Lord's speeches is listening to, the Lord's prophets, because, the Lord's prophets are his mouthpiece. Isaiah chapter 32, this is verse 10. It says, "Many days and years shall you be troubled, ye careless women. For the venture shall fail, the gathering shall not come." Okay. And see, here it is. This society, it's going to collapse very soon. And these goodies, are going to be, are going to go away very soon. All these goodies and whatnot that, Esau, gives our women and whatnot, they're about to be done away with. And he's actually doing away with some of them right now. A lot of them, I should say, right now. He's doing away with a lot of these SNAP benefits and whatnot. And a lot of these women are being affected. Many of these government benefits, as well as even these government jobs, that many of our women, are accustomed to having, are about to be done away with. And as I was saying, I saw an article, a recent article, to where it said over 170,000 people, here in the state of Maryland are about to lose their SNAP benefits. Okay. And so with that being said, a lot of women are going to be affected. The venture is going to fail. And here it is. You have a lot of our women. They're always talking about being Miss Independent and whatnot, saying that they don't need a man and whatnot. They're going to be in a bad case. They're going to be troubled, and see, when society collapses, 911 is going to be done away with, Here it is. You got inflation right now. It's steadily on the rise. You got food shortages that are coming, and crime is just going to continue to be on the rise. And many of these Miss Independents, that say that they don't need a man, they're going to wish that they had a man, and not just any man. They're going to want a man of the Lord. Okay, because the man of the Lord is going to have that hedge of protection over him. But, for a lot of these women, it's going to be too late. Many of these women are going to be left out here. Many of our women, they're going to be left out here, to face the evils and the calamities that are coming. Isaiah chapter 32, this is verse 11. It says, "Tremble, ye women that are at ease." It says, "Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins." Okay, and see, our women, they're supposed to be humble. They're supposed to be in a spirit of mourning. But many of our women, they're in a spirit of mirth. Here it is. You got a lot of our women. They have taken on these different enchantments that's pushed out over here in Babylon the Great. As I was saying, you got a lot of our women. They call themselves Miss Independent. They say that they don't need a man. Okay, they want to be they want to partake in this Miss Hot Girl summer and whatnot. Here it is. You got men of our women. They think that America's just going to continue on. And you got men of our women. They just want to continue to live in a spirit of mirth. Being out all times of the night, gadding abroad and whatnot, partaking in all of these different enchantments, such as this stock culture and whatnot, this Miss Hot Girl Summer. These type of women, they're going to be in for a rude awakening very soon. And see, here it is. You're going to have men of them. They're going to try to run to a man of the Lord, but they're going to get rejected because, a man of the Lord is not going to deal with a woman, who's not going to get in order. Okay. Again, a man of the Lord is not going to deal with a woman who's not going to get in order. And many of these women, they don't want to get in order. The majority of our women over here in Babylon the Great, they're through. You just got to call it like it is. Isaiah chapter 32, and this is verse 12. It says, they shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. Okay, and see, here it is. You're going to have many of our women, they're going to be, looking for some type of care package from Esau. They're going to be looking for Esau to save them. And Esau, he may throw them a few crumbs, but in return, Esau, he's going to want them to get that M.O. to the T to the B. And you're going to have many of our women, they're going to fold and they're going to get it. Okay, and that right there is going to lead to their destruction. Okay, this is Psalms chapter 37. This is verse 25. And it reads, I have been young and now am old. Yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Okay, and see, those of us that are of the hopeful elect, we're going to continue to put all of our faith and trust in the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, because we know that it's the Lord that's providing for us. And it's the Lord that's going to, it's the Lord that's ensuring that we get our daily bread. Okay. I got one more scripture I'm going to bring out, then we're going to end the lesson. And this is Isaiah chapter 10, this is verse 20. And it reads, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. Okay, and see, those of us that are of the hopeful elect, we no longer stay on this devil Esau who smoked us. Those of us that are of the hopeful elect, we're no longer staying, on these lies and the false doctrine that these devils, came up with, to keep us all dumbed down and oppressed. Okay, those of us that are of the hopeful elect, we're staying on this truth. Okay, we're staying on the Lord because we know that it's the Lord that's providing for us. Okay, it's the Lord, that ensures we get our daily bread. And the Lord says that his servants will eat and drink. And with that being said, the Lord's words are faithful and true. And so again, those of us that are of the hopeful elect, we're going to continue to put all of our faith and trust in the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. And so, that's pretty much the point. I'm going to go ahead and end off here. I hope it was edifying. Once again, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, and double honors and respect to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, Kwame Yasharal and Abba Baba. Shalom.